It is my pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Dirka Prout, known to a lot of people here. She is a self-described Poli-engineer. She's a geotechnical engineer who works on provincial and municipal infrastructure projects, and she has twice been a candidate for the federal NDP in London North Centre. Welcome, Dirka.
Thank you, Patty. You know, a couple weeks ago, I attended a talk about the determination of tornado wind speeds by Dr. Greg Kopp, a Western University professor and lead researcher in the Northern Tornadoes Project. According to the project's website, the goal is to improve detection and understanding of tornadoes, better mitigate harms to people and property, and explore future implications of climate change. One of the beneficial side outcomes of the Northern Tornadoes Project is that they share this information with public agencies who write the building codes and the municipalities who enforce the codes and issue building permits. But noting that those codes mostly affect new builds, I asked Dr. Kopp about a question that what could be done to protect existing structures. His answer both surprised me and quickly progressed from the realm of engineering to public policy, social science, and environmental justice. I'd like to speak to you a bit today about the intersection of environmental justice and public policy. It turns out that retrofitting an existing building to better protect it against tornadoes is generally a solvable engineering problem. The same can be said for retrofitting existing dwellings so that their occupants are not subject to energy poverty. In the energy efficiency realm, at any given time, there are rebates given by energy utilities and all three levels of government. Programs like the Canada Greener Homes Initiative leave out whole swaths of the population, renters and homeowners alike. Those left out are mainly low-income individuals, whether they live in rural or urban settings, elderly, disabled, and those suffering from health problems. The most affected are Indigenous peoples, primarily in rural and northern areas. In the Affordable Action Center this week issued a policy brief noting three major barriers to accessing the retrofit programs. High upfront cost. With stagnating wages and rising inflation, many low-income persons are debt-laden and cannot afford the high upfront costs to implement retrofits. Far less wait months or even years to get the rebate. Complex administration costs and gaps in eligibility. Those wishing to retrofit programs, to access those programs, have to wait a long time to complete a bunch of paperwork and do the assessments. Programs are based towards the owners of single-family detached homes, leaving many apartment renters and condo owners out in the cold. Overly narrow scope. Many retrofit programs focus on energy efficiency. While this is a laudable goal, Canada is increasingly buffeted by wildfires, floods, storms, and yes, even tornadoes. These three barriers amount to climate injustice. Why? The list of Canadians affected by climate change includes those at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder, intersection with other identities such as disability, being Indigenous or racialized or immunocompromised. Canada is underperforming in the area of climate resiliency, which includes mitigation of climate disasters, because when wildfires, floods, and ice, wind, or snowstorms occur, political leaders, emergency responders, and ordinary Canadians on a whole, they do an excellent job of rendering assistance. But this is the best of Canada on display. Disaster recovery does get good attention, at least initially. But if you look at the case of persons who lost their home in the 2021 Barrie EF2 tornado, the majority of those homes have not been rebuilt. We can effectively diagnose what went wrong with emergency preparedness. This is thanks to the hard work of journalists and researchers like those at the Northern Tornado Project. However, there's a lack of timely follow-through with those recommendations. When governments fail to invest in climate mitigation and preparation, they fail Canadians. They widen the pool of people affected by climate injustice. In Ontario, the Financial Accountability Office reported that the backlog of repairs and upgrades to infrastructure to resist climate change is at least $35 billion and counting. The Ford government's failure is to support Ontario municipalities that own and maintain a majority of this infrastructure is appalling. The Ford government has also cut funding to conservation authorities who assess flood risk and limit development in flood-prone areas. This failure of both federal and provincial governments to invest in climate mitigation and prevention exposes more and more Canadians to financial ruin, homelessness, and mental anguish. This at a time when we already have an affordability and housing crisis and inadequate mental health supports. So what can citizens do? Well, a lot really. We need to pressure policymakers and elected officials at all levels of government to prioritize vulnerable populations and critical infrastructure. Demand that all retrofit programs benefit renters and low-income homeowners. Demand free and barrier-free retrofit programs focused on Indigenous communities, persons living in deep poverty with low income, seniors, the disabled, and immunocompromised people. Environmental justice must be embedded in public policy on climate change. Every single culture and socio-economic background must be equitably protected from environmental and health hazards. Vulnerable communities should also be involved in the decision-making process. Safeguarding health and well-being is enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Let's work together to uphold this principle. Thank you for listening.